the problem number one. This is a problem based on analysis of financial statements. Friends, you will definitely be able to see this in RTPs, but we thought it's a very important question. We will have to focus on this, learn this, and there is every possibility a similar problem can appear in the question in the examination. So therefore, I thought that we should attempt this in the live session, friends. Before we get into the problem as such, what is this chapter analysis of finance statement all about? See, friends, already we have learned 14 chapters covering various Ind AS, right from Ind AS 1 to Ind AS 41. Various standards we have learned. The problems on analysis of financial statements covered by chapter 15 will not be on a particular standard. It will be encompassing everything that we learned so far. For example, they may give you a certain situation where there is a wrong application of a certain accounting standards. The valuation could have been wrong. The accounting treatment could have been wrong. And, something like that. We will be asked to, advise whether the accounting treatment has been done correctly, whether disclosure is done appropriately or not. If there is any, you know, manner in which it is not done properly, then we'll have to guide them how the accounting could have been done appropriately, how the measurement should be done, and how it should be disclosed. So, or they might have given you a complete financial statement of a company with various adjustments, which will tell you that certain items in the finance statement are not disclosed appropriately, or there is wrong application of a certain accounting standard. So, therefore, in order to attempt and be successful on a problem on analysis of financial statement, we should be capable of applying all the accounting standards, of course, pertaining to the question. So unless we have a comprehensive idea about all the accounting standards, solving a problem on analysis of financial statement will not be that easy, friends. So I'm assuming that all of you have had very good base expertise and knowledge in the various accounting standards. Keeping that in mind, we have to solve the problem. So you might be interested to know whether you'll get a problem from this chapter. Yes, very much possible. It could even be a compulsory question. Question number one, carrying 15 marks. It can go up to 20 marks also because it is application of various accounting standards. So there is a possibility that you may get it for one full question carrying 15-20 marks. That is also possible. So assuming that you guys have adequate knowledge in all the accounting standards, we are trying to attempt this problem. Deepak started a new company, Soft Bharati Private Limited with Iktara Limited, wherein investment of 50% is done by Iktara, rest by Deepak. So Soft Bharati Private Limited has two stakeholders. One is the company Iktara, holding 58% stake, 48% held by Deepak. So it's given very clearly the voting powers are to be given as per the proportionate share of capital contribution. So very clearly, Iktara Limited will control Soft Bharati Private Limited, though Deepak is also holding 45% stake in Soft Bharati Private Limited. The new company formed was the subsidiary of Iktara, of which we don't have any doubts, with two directors. Deepak eventually becomes one of the directors of the company. So Deepak is a key management personnel in the company Soft Bharati Limited. Consultant was hired and he charged rupees 30,000 for incorporation of the company and to do other necessary statutory registrations. 30,000 is to be charged as expense in the books after incorporation of the company. So as you know, in order to incorporate a company, you need to hire the service of a company secretary or a consultant, and he charges 30,000. So they have to charge it to the books of accounts as expense after incorporation. So South Bharati was incorporated on 1st April 2019. The financials of Ictara Limited are prepared as per Ind AS. Why? Because Ictara Limited may be a company which has to comply with Ind AS. So they have prepared the financials of the holding company Ictara based on Ind AS. An accountant who was hired at the time of company's incorporation has prepared the draft financials of Bharati for the year ending 31/3/20 as follows. So 1 year has gone by from the date of incorporation of South Bharati. An accountant was hired at the company's incorporation, prepared the financials of South Bharati and presented that in this manner. As you can see, friends, sorry. The statement of P&L is given to you. Revenue from operations, other income, total expense, purchase of stock in trade, increase or decrease in stock in trade, employee benefit, depreciation, other expense. So the P&L of the company South Bharati is given to you. Current tax, deferred tax, profit for the year, all done appropriately and presented to you. Now they are presenting the balance sheet of the new company. Shareholders fund, share capital, reserve surplus, non-current liabilities, long-term provision, deferred tax liabilities. Current liability include trade payable, other current liability, short-term provisions. Of course, the total balance sheet is 5,21,000. Then the assets side is given. Non-current assets, property, plant and equipment, net 1 lakh. Long-term loans in advance, other non-current assets. Current assets include current investment, inventory, trade receivable, cash and bank balance, and other current assets. So a tallied balance sheet as on 31/3/2020 is given to you. So you might wonder what could be the question. The real question starts now only. So some more additional information of South Bharati company is provided to you. What are they? The deferred tax liability of 6,000 is created due to the following temporary difference. As you might have seen in the P&L, there is a deferred tax liability of 6,000. What is the reason for that? The reason is difference in depreciation amount as per income tax and accounting profit. So the difference could be 20,000 rupees because the tax rate is normally 30%. So the deferred tax liability 6,000 is an account of the different amounts of depreciation as per income tax and the accounting profit. So keep this in mind, friends. There is only one property, plant and equipment in the company whose closing balance on 31st March 20 is as follows. So are you able to understand the temporary difference here? As per books, the carrying amount of PP is 1 lakh, but for the purpose of income tax, that is tax base, it is 80,000 rupees. Therefore, in income tax, depreciation allowed is more than the books of account. That is why there is a temporary difference of 20,000 rupees. On that, if you apply the rate of 30%, the deferred tax liability of 6,000 has been accounted for like that. So hope you understand how deferred tax liability was created. Pre-incorporation expenses are deductible on straight line basis over the period of 5 years as per the Income Tax Act. However, the same are immediately expensed off in the books. So books of accounts, they write off the expenditure in full. Pre-incorporation, that is the 30,000 rupees, but Income Tax Act will allow it over a period of 5 years only. As you know, as per section 35D of the Income Tax Act, preliminary expense will be allowed over a period of 5 years equally. So there will be a temporary difference on account of this also. Books, we have recognized the expense in full, whereas income tax allows over a period of 5 years only. So there will be still unamortized preliminary expenses, which will be added back to the profit of the company to determine the taxable income. So this may result in a deferred tax asset. We will have to account for that. It seems that they have not taken care of this adjustment while determining the deferred tax. Current tax is calculated at 30% on PBT 3,58,000 without doing any adjustment related to income tax. So the profit before tax was 355. They applied 30% on that. They calculated current tax, but they did not do any adjustment to determine the correct current tax. But now they have done the necessary adjustments after disallowance and allowance related income tax. Now the correct current tax is actually 125,700 only. After the reporting period, the directors have recommended dividend of rupees 15,000 for year ending 31st March 20, which has been deducted from reserves and surplus. Dividend payable of 15,000 has been grouped along with other current liabilities, under other current liabilities along with other financial liabilities. So please read the question carefully, this information carefully, friends. Directors have recommended dividend of 15,000. So it's only at the proposal stage, recommendation stage. As you know, accounting standards does not allow adjustment of dividend which is proposed. If only the dividend is declared after the resolution passed by the shareholders, it becomes a liability for the company till such time any recommended dividend or proposed dividend shall be disclosed in the notes to accounts only. But what they have done, they have deducted that from reserves and surplus, and they have also grouped it under other current liabilities along with other financial liabilities. Whether this is appropriate or not, in accordance with Ind AS, this is not appropriate. So we'll have to make the adjustment for this also. There are government statutory dues amounting to 15,000 which are grouped under other current liabilities. Any amount payable to government should be disclosed separately. You cannot group it with other current liabilities. So there is, grouping, clubbing difficulties or problems are there that we have to rectify. The capital advance amounting to 50,000 are grouped under other non-current asset. Again, where you have made a capital advance to acquire some asset or for the purpose of construction, you can't show that the other non-current asset. It should be shown as a separate line item in the balance sheet, but they have not done it like that. They have wrongly grouped it under other non-current assets. Other current assets 58,000 comprise interest receivable from trade receivables. So interest receivable is to be collected in the form of money. They have clubbed that along with other current assets. Therefore, there is a problem with grouping this under other current assets. That also has to be rectified. Current investment of 30,000 is in shares of a company which is done with the purpose of trading. Current investment has been carried at cost in the financial statements, whereas the fair value in this case is 50,000 as on 31st March 20. As you know, friends, any current investment in the books of a company shall be recognized in accordance with Ind AS 109 by routing the fair value through P&L or OCI. Is it not? But what they have done, they've shown that at 30,000 cost. So therefore, we have to change the value of investment to the fair value. The difference of 20,000 should be recognized in the P&L or in the OCI. The option is available to us. So that also we have to take into consideration. Actuarial gain on employee benefit measurement of 1,000 has been omitted in the financials of South Bharati Private Limited. So that has to be brought into the books of accounts. Actuarial gain on employee benefit measurement. As you know, friends, any actuarial gain on employee benefit shall be routed through the other comprehensive income, OCI. So remember that, but they haven't recognized that at all when they prepared the financial statements as on 31/3/20. The financial statement for the year 1920 have not yet been approved. Accountant has prepared it. Approval is said to be given. You are required to ascertain whether the financial statement of Saaf Bharati Private Limited are correctly presented as per the applicable financial reporting framework. If not, prepare the revised financial statements of Saaf Bharati after the careful analysis of the mentioned facts and information. So, friends, you are required to ascertain whether it is correctly presented. Immediately after that, they say, if not, prepare the revised financial statement. So, what do we understand from that? They have already given the answer for the first question. Whether it is prepared in accordance with the applicable framework? No. That is why they're asking you to prepare the revised statements. So, therefore, but how do we conclude it is prepared not in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework? Then how do we prepare the revised financial statements? That is the real question. So, taking into consideration all the information given in the question and the various adjustments forming part of the question, we have to, number one, ascertain whether the finance statement is as per the applicable financial reporting framework. Number one, you have to answer that question first. Then, if you conclude it is not, you have to show the revised financial statement based on the available information. So, friends, what will be the answer for this question? So, an understanding of deferred taxation, proper grouping and presenting of financial statements, understanding of events after the balance sheet date, so many things, so many standards will be applied here. And based on that, you are going to prepare the revised financial statements. Now, whether the statements are prepared in accordance with the applicable financial reporting framework or not. How do we conclude that? We know the answer, it is not. But how do we say it is not? That is the most important question here. Okay. So, friends, having read the problem thoroughly from the beginning, we understand Saaf Bharati Company is a subsidiary of Iktara Limited. Iktara Limited is a company which prepares the financial statements as per Ind AS. So, according to the applicability of Ind AS, if Ind AS is applicable to the parent company, it automatically becomes applicable to the subsidiary company also. So, Iktara parent company complies with Ind AS. Therefore, Saaf Bharati also should prepare their finance statement based on Ind AS. Whereas, if you had seen the format in which the balance sheet of Saaf Bharati was presented, you can understand that it is not presented in accordance with Division 2 of Schedule 3 of Companies Act, which is applicable to companies which have to comply with Ind AS. Is it not? So, therefore, first we have to say that the financial statement of Saaf Bharati is not prepared in accordance with the financial reporting framework. So, you can see here, if Ind AS is applicable to any company, it shall automatically be made applicable to all subsidiary, parent company, associate companies, and joint venture, irrespective of the individual qualification of set of standards of such companies. So, for that particular company, Ind AS may not be applicable as a standalone basis, but because it is a subsidiary or parent company or joint venture associate company, Ind AS becomes applicable to that company also. It is clearly given in the question that the financials of the parent company are prepared as per Ind AS. Therefore, the financial statement of Saaf Bharati also should be prepared based on Ind AS. But if you carefully see, the financial Saaf Bharati doesn't prepared as per accounting standard, as per company's accounting standard rules of 2006, where they should be applying company's Indian accounting standard rules of 2015. Therefore, we are clear that the financial statements of Saaf Bharati Private Limited has not been prepared in accordance with the financial reporting framework. So that's a basic and a very, very important and significant change we have to make when we present the financial statement of Saaf Bharati Private Limited. So therefore, friends, we have to revise the financial statement of Saaf Bharati as per Ind AS by incorporating the necessary adjustments mentioned in the question. So we answered one part of the question. Whether the financials of the company is prepared properly, appropriately? No. Why? It is a subsidiary of a company which complies with Ind AS. The statement of this company should be prepared based on Ind AS only, but it is wrongly prepared based on AS. Therefore, it is not prepared in accordance with the Indian accounting standards. We have to revise it, considering all the other adjustments given in the question. Hope you are clear till this point, friends. If you have any questions up to this point, please ask me. Otherwise, let us move on to the next segment of the question. That is presentation of the revised financial statement of Saaf Bharati as per Ind AS Division 2 to Schedule 3 of Companies Act. But while doing so, we should focus not only on the format, but also we should consider whatever mistakes have happened in the accounting standards. Based on that, we have to rectify that. Okay. Now, I am going to present to you the statement of P&L in accordance with Ind AS. Friends, I believe you have the question with you. Then only it is easy to understand what is revised. Otherwise, it's difficult to understand from this slide. So if you have the question in your possession, you will understand that the difference is with respect to other income. Or you may refer later that in the original financial statement provided to us, other income was 1 lakh. But now it is 1,20,000. How? Revenue from operation 10 lakh, no change. No change in this. Purchase of stock in trade, no change. Increase, decrease stock, no change. No change in anything. The only change is other income. What is the 20,000 rupees? We have to refer note number 1. What is note number 1? If you have read the problem carefully, it says current investment purchased from a company held for the purpose of trading. Where an investment in share is made and held for the purpose of trading, such investment shall be recognized in the financial statement based on Ind AS 109. That means we should recognize the investment at fair value through P&L. Fair value is 50,000 rupees, but books have recognized the cost at 30,000 only. So the increase in fair value of 20,000 should be routed through P&L. It should be shown under other income, not in OCI. So therefore, the 1 lakh plus 20,000 increase in fair value is added to the other income. So this is the only change in the P&L so far. Or if you really want to see note number 1, I can show you for what reason it is different. Note number 1. See, current investment are held for the purpose of trading. It is a financial asset classified as FVTPL, fair value through P&L. Any gain in fair value will be recognized through the P&L. 20,000 increase in fair value of financial asset is recognized in the P&L, it will attract deferred tax liability. That is different. That we will do later. So the 20,000 rupees increase in other income is on account of restating the current investment at fair value. That is how you got 20,000 rupees more in other income. Okay, friends. That is how it became 120. No other adjustments are there, friends. Okay. Right. So the profit before tax earlier was 3,55,000. Now it is 3,75,000. 20,000 rupees increase. That's it. Current tax. The current tax given in the question was different. It is based on 3,55,000. The current tax would have been 1,06,500 earlier. If you refer the original P&L, the current tax would have been 1,06,500. But now it is 125,700. How? It is given in the question. Before making any adjustment, the current tax was 1,06,500. But after making all the necessary adjustments pertaining to income tax, it is already determined as 125,700. So we are recording that directly. But anyway, we can see that how it has become 100. We can see that later. No problem. Okay. Similarly, deferred tax is 4,800. How it is 4,800? According to the P&L given to us, it was 6,000 rupees, right? But now it is 4,800. How? Working note number 1. So in order to understand this, I would like to take you to the working note number 1. Okay. Please see working note number 1. We will have to understand this problem like this only, friends. Just go back and forth to understand. Working note number 1. This is how the the deferred tax liability accounts for 4,800. Already, there is a difference between the carrying amount and tax base of property, plant, and equipment, resulting in a deferred tax liability of 6,000. 20,000 is the taxable temporary difference. Deferred tax liability 30%. This is already there. But that is subject to change, is it not? What are they? Number 1, pre-incorporation expense. According to the books, it is 0 because every rupee of that expense has been charged to P&L. So there is no carrying amount in the books of accounts. Whereas for the purpose of tax base, out of 30,000 rupees spent, 6,000 only will be allowed in this year. So the balance of 24,000 will be allowed in the future years, resulting in a deferred tax asset, future deductible amount. It's a temporary difference, right? Books has claimed 30,000 in full, income tax will allow that in 5 years. It's a deductible temporary difference of 24,000, resulting in a deferred tax asset of 7,200, 25,000 into 30%. Right? We have to recognize that in the books of account. Similarly, current investment, 20,000 rupees fair value increase you have recorded. But for the purpose of tax base, it is 30,000 only, is it not? So there is a difference of 20,000 rupees, which is future taxable. Only when you realize that 20,000 rupees gain, Income Tax Act will tax it, right? So it's a future taxable temporary difference, resulting in a deferred tax liability of 6,000. So therefore, the original deferred tax liability was 6,000 only, but now we have to account for another deferred tax liability of 6,000 and a deferred tax liability of 7,200. Finally, the deferred tax liability will be 4,800. This is how we got the deferred tax liability in the P&L as 4,800. Are you clear, friends? If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I will explain to you. So that's how it was 4,800. So I'm just going back to the P&L. where we started. See, that is how we got 48. How we got 125,700? It is given in the question. So therefore, the total tax expense, you have to add these two. Profit for the year is 244,500 is after deducting the total tax expense. And the next one, 1,000 rupees. Remeasurement of net defined benefit plan. There's a gain on remeasurement of net defined benefit plan. According to the problem, it is not recognized given in the question. We should recognize it through OCI, is it not? So therefore, what will happen? You have to credit the OCI and debit the provisions. It could have been wrongly taken as a part of the liability. Now we are recognizing 1,000 rupees gain as part of the OCI. So to that extent, the provision amount will reduce, will be shown as income of 1,000. And this will also result in a future taxable income, correct? No? So on that, what is the deferred tax? 300. 1,000 into 30%, 300. Therefore, the other comprehensive income will be 700 only. Hence, the total comprehensive income for the period is 245,200. That is 244,500 plus 700, 245,200. Whereas the original P&L given to us has a different number. So there are changes in other income, increase of 20, changes in current tax, changes in deferred tax liability, remeasured net benefit plan, tax on that. After all, of making all these adjustments, the total comprehensive income for the year is 245,200. Now, similarly, we have to revise the balance sheet also to present it according to Division 2 of Schedule 3 of Companies Act, the format that is applicable to an Ind AS compliant company. Correct? So let's go forward and see how the balance sheet is presented. Friends, as you know, for an Ind AS company, the balance sheet, the top segment is asset, bottom segment is equity liabilities. Whereas the statements presented to us, prepared as per accounting standard, the top segment was equity liability, bottom segment was asset. Now we have to revise it completely. Property, plant and equipment, no change. Other financial asset, long-term loans and advances, 40,000 rupees. That is also no change as given in the question. Whereas other non-current asset of 50 is a capital advance. We should clearly mention it is paid for a capital advance. We should not club it with other non-current assets. We should show that separately, 50,000 rupees. Refer note number 2. So let's go to note number 2 to see what is that. Try to understand that. Note number 2. Assets for which future economic benefit is receipt of goods or services rather than the right to receive cash or other financial asset or not financial asset. You should not show it under financial asset. You show it as a capital because we paid money. We'll be receiving goods or we'll be receiving some services. So they cannot be classified as financial asset. It should be shown as part of the other current assets separately stating that it is a capital advance. So therefore, that is shown separately in the financial statements. Right. Inventory, as you know, friends, there is no change given in the question. Simply we do it. Financial asset. Yes, investment is a financial asset. According to the books, it was 30 only, but we have increased it by 20,000 rupees and we have raised it to fair value. So there is a change in this 50,000. Trade receivable, cash and cash equivalent, no change as given in the original balance sheet. Other financial assets, interest receivable from trade receivable. See, where you have to get money from another person, we should show it as other financial asset. So it's given in adjustment of the problem. So we have to show it as other financial assets. Coming to equity liability, capital, no change. Other equity, yes, definitely. We found it as 245, 200, is it not? How did we get this other equity? That we have to go to the notes. How did we get that 245, 200? Like this. Profit for the year, 244, 500. OCI, 700. Therefore, TCI, total comprehensive income is 245, 200. Dividend on equity share should not be deducted because it is not declared. It is only at the recommendation of proposal stage, but it is already deducted. That is how they got retained earnings earlier. But we should not adjust it now. Without adjusting dividend, the other equity is 245, 200. Note number 4 will tell you why it should not be deducted. As I've already explained to you why, but still I would like to show you the note number 4 for that purpose. See, this is based on Ind AS 10. Events after the reporting period, if dividends are declared, the dividends are not recognized as a liability end of reporting period because no obligation exists at that time. Such dividends are only disclosed in the notes in accordance with Ind AS 1 presentation of financial statement. So as you can see, by virtue of Ind AS 10, if dividends are declared after the reporting period, you cannot recognize it as a liability. It is a non-adjusting event. And in accordance with Ind AS 1, such dividend should be disclosed. So two standards applicability is there. That is why dividend has not been deducted from other equity. Whereas in the balance sheet given to us, they have already adjusted that, which is not correct. So friends, we have not deducted that. Are you clear? That is how we got other equity. Okay. Yes. 245, 200. Change is there. I've explained to you how you got the change. Provision has become 24. Why not 25? 25,000 was the original provision, but that included the gain of 1,000 rupees on remeasurement of net defined benefit plan, is it not? So you have to reduce the provision by 1,000 and show it as other comprehensive income. So that is why it is 24,000. 25 minus 1. Deferred tax liability, two deferred tax liability, one on the temporary difference arising out of plant property equipment, pre-incorporation expenses, and recognizing fair value of investment, that is 4,800, plus 300 rupees of deferred tax liability arising on account of remeasurement of defined benefit plan. So the total deferred tax liability is 5,100. 48 plus 300. 300 is based on this 1,000 rupees. Clear? 1,000 rupees into 30%, 300. Already 48 we have did that. So the total deferred tax liability is 5,100. Trade payable is 11,000. I don't think there is any change in that. Later, other financial liabilities. Refer note number 5. Other current liability, refer note number 3. Current tax liability, given in the question, we have recorded that. Okay. So what is note number 5 and note number 3? We have to see. So this is already done. This is also done. Note number 1 for change in fair value. Note number 2 for capital advance should not be shown as financial asset. Note number 3, liability for which there is no contractual obligation to deliver cash or other asset or not financial liability. So you should not show and the amount as financial liability. So therefore, we are showing it under current liabilities, that 15,000 rupees. 4 we have already seen. Then 5. How did we get this current liabilities 15,000? See, according to the question, the balance of other current liabilities 45,000, but that includes what? Number 1, dividend declared. See, we have not recognized a dividend declared as a deduction from retained earnings. We are only going to disclose it, is it not? So therefore, you have to eliminate that. It is not deducted from reserve surplus. It should not form part of the other current liabilities also. Similarly, the government statutory dues is not a financial liability deducted. So only balance will be shown as current liability 15,000 rupees. So the government statutory dues will be shown separately. Current liability will be shown separately. That's what we have done. Yes, friends, as you can see, other financial liability is the amount payable, and other current liabilities are 15,000 rupees. Current tax liability as given in the question. So with this, we will be completing the balance sheet. The total of balance sheet after revision is 5,41,000. This is, of course, supported by the various notes, right? First notes is change in equity. Equity capital, no change. Opening balance, closing balance, same. So it continues to remain at 1 lakh. Then changes in equity, already I told you, it's 244,500 plus 7 is 245,200. Already we discussed this. Note number 1, increase in fair value of current investment. Note number 2, if any future benefit will not be received in cash, they are not financial assets. Similarly, there is no contractual obligation to deliver cash, it's not a financial liability. Then dividends proposed shall only be disclosed, it shall not be shown as a liability at the end of reporting period. This is in accordance with Ind AS 10 as well as Ind AS 1. And the calculation of other current financial liabilities, friends. It's a very good and wonderful problem, friends. See, so many standards application. Ind AS 10 is there, Ind AS 1, Ind AS 16, Ind AS 12, and of course, the Division 2 of Schedule 3 of Companies Act. All comprehensive adjustments are given in relation to this problem. Based on that, we have to prepare the revised financial statements. So it's a very good problem, can appear as a mandatory or compulsory question in question number 1, can fetch you 15 marks in the examination. Very, very good problem, friends. So that's why we thought we should share it with you, the live session, and we should discuss it with you also, friends. Now tell me, I have completed my presentation of the answer to question number 1 appropriately in the exam. Friends, now we are going to take up another question from chapter number 14. What we learned earlier was chapter 15, analysis of financial statement. Now we are going to take up problems on chapter 14. The first problem is based on Ind AS 110. That is consolidated financial statements. PP Limited, a non-investment entity. That means it is supposed to prepare consolidated financial statement, because an investment entity is not obliged to prepare CFS as per Ind AS 110. So it's a non-investment entity. Is the parent of Praja within the meaning of Ind AS 110. The investment in Praja was carried in the separate finance statement of PP Limited fair value, changes in fair value taken to OCI. So PP has recognized investment in Praja. was carried in the separate financial statement at fair value, with changes at fair value in the OCI. As you know, friends, where a company is supposed to prepare a consolidated financial statements, such company shall present such investment in the separate financial statements either at cost or in accordance with Ind AS 109. So therefore, in the separate financial statement of PP Limited, they are recognizing the fair value, the changes, if any, they are routing it through the other comprehensive income. That is information given to you. On 1st April 2012, PP Limited qualifies as one, that is an investment entity. That means from now onward, they need not prepare the consolidated financial statement, effective 1st April 2012. Carrying amount of the investment on 1st April 2002 was rupees 8 lakh. The fair value of its investment Praja was 10 lakh on that date. PP Limited had recognized in OCI an amount of 1 lakh as a previous fair value increase related to the investment in Praja Limited. So earlier, the increase in fair value to the extent of 1 lakh was recognized in OCI. But on 1st April 2002, PP Limited has become an investment entity. Once it becomes an investment in entity, it is not required to prepare consolidated statements. Then, how they will show this investment in the separate financial statement? That could probably be the question. Let us see what is the question. See, I got it right. How would PP Limited account for the investment in Praja Limited on the date of change of its classification of status as an investment entity in its separate financial statements? Earlier, PP Limited was a non-investment entity. It is supposed to prepare consolidated financial statements. But in the separate statement, they have recognized the investment in Praja by routing the fair value through OCI. Effective April 2012, it became an investment entity. At that time, carrying amount was 8 lakh. Fair value was 10 lakh. Earlier, 1 lakh was recognized as a fair value increase. Now that their status has changed as an investment entity, how would the company account for the investment in Praja Limited in its separate financial statements? That is a question for us. Okay. What could be the answer? On the date of change, that is 1st April 12, the parent becomes an investment entity. So its investment in subsidiary shall be at fair value through P&L in accordance with Ind AS 109. So what is the new carrying amount? It will be 10 lakh. Because according to the question, the carrying amount is 8 lakh. But fair value is 10 lakh. So once it becomes an investment in investment entity, the investment subsidiary shall be at fair value through P&L, which is in accordance with Ind AS 109. So the new carrying amount will be 10 lakh. So the 2 lakh will be taken to P&L, correct? So the difference between the new carrying amount and the carrying amount of investment date of change will be recognized in P&L. Therefore, the 2 lakh difference will be taken to P&L as a gain. It will increase the carrying amount of investment in associate. Clear? In other words, debit investment in associate 2 lakh, sorry, investment in Praja Limited 2 lakh, credit P&L account 2 lakh. So what will happen? Carrying amount will increase to 10 lakh. 8 will become 10 lakh now. But earlier they have recognized some fair value adjustment in OCI. But at that time, PP Limited was a non-investment entity. Now it has become an investment entity. Therefore, the OCI already recognized shall now be taken to P&L. Because now the relationship of parent subsidiary ceases to exist. So the 1 lakh already recognized in OCI shall be reclassified to profit and loss account. So that's what is the third point. So any fair value adjustment previously recognized in OCI in respect of subsidiary shall be treated as if investment entity disposed of the subsidiary at the date of change of status. Actually, they have not disposed of. But once the status changes, any fair value adjustment recognized OCI shall be treated as if the entity has disposed of the subsidiary. Therefore, the amount already recognized in OCI shall now be reclassified to P&L. In other words, you have to debit the OCI, credit the P&L. So what will happen? Another 1 lakh will get added to the, carrying amount of investment. So therefore, carrying amount of investment Praja Limited is 10 lakh. Amount recognized in P&L will be 2 lakh, that is 8 lakh to 10 lakh. 1 lakh recognized in OCI will be taken to P&L 1 lakh. Therefore, 3 lakh will be credited to P&L, and the carrying amount of investment in Praja Limited in the balance sheet will be 10 lakh. So this is how accounting will be done in the separate financial statement of PP Limited as far as this investment is concerned. Hope it's clear, friends. Application of Ind AS 110. This problem may get you 5 marks or 6 marks in the exam. So if you take around 10 minutes to solve this problem, it would be worthy to attend and spend that much time in the examination. So as usual, friends, I have completed my discussion and presentation of the solution. If there is any question, please ask me. I will explain to you. These are all very good questions, you understand, and very much possible to appear in the examination also. May not be the same question, slight variations will be there. That has to be taken into consideration. There every possibility we will, get questions like this in the examination. Friends, third problem is also a problem based on chapter 14 Ind AS 110. Let's see what is the question. Solar Limited has an 80% interest in subsidiary Mars Limited. Solar Limited holds a direct interest of 20% in Venus Limited. So Solar has interest in two companies, Mars 80%, Venus 25%. So it's very clear that Solar and Mars are parent subsidiary. Mars holds 30% interest in Venus. So in Venus Limited, there are three stakeholders. Solar Limited 25%, Mars Limited 30%, balance 40% held by others. The decisions concerning relevant activities of Venus Limited require a simple majority of votes. So if Mars holds 30%, Solar holds 25% in Venus Limited, Solar and Mars put together holds 55% in Venus Limited. So if any decision relating to Venus Limited should be taken, simple majority of votes is sufficient. Therefore, if Mars and Solar come together, they hold 55% stake in that, they will cross the simple majority. Therefore, we could say Solar and Mars both jointly control Mars Limited. How should Solar Limited account for its investment in Venus Limited in its consolidated financial statements? Anyway, Solar has to prepare consolidated statement in addition with its subsidiary Mars Limited. They also have an investment of 20% in Venus Limited. So in the consolidated financial statement of Solar, how the investment in Venus Limited should be accounted? That is a question. See, That's what I told you, friends. Solar Limited controls Mars Limited since it holds 80% of voting rights. Any doubts? Clear. More than 50% voting rights anybody has in another company, they control the other company. It also controls voting rights associated with 30% equity interest held by Mars Limited in Venus Limited. Mars is holding 30% shares of Venus Limited. By controlling Mars Limited, Solar Limited would control the rights associated with 30% interest held by Mars Limited also in Venus Limited. In addition, Solar Limited also has 20% direct equity interest and related voting power. Thus, Solar Limited controls 55% voting power of Venus Limited. The decisions concerning relevant activities of Venus require a simple majority of votes. Solar Limited controls Venus Limited, should therefore consolidate it in accordance with Ind AS 110. Through its subsidiary, Solar Limited is able to control Venus Limited. In addition, it also has a direct interest of 25%. So therefore, Solar Limited controls Venus Limited. It should consolidate its investment in Venus Limited in accordance with Ind AS 110. But see, what is the actual ownership interest? Very, very clear, because this question might have arisen in your mind. Solar Limited holds 80% in Mars Limited. Mars Limited holds 30% in Venus Limited. Therefore, through its subsidiary Mars Limited, Solar Limited has 24% stake indirectly, 80% of 30%. Directly, it holds 25%. Therefore, what is Solar Limited share in Venus Limited? It will be 49% only. Solar Limited could control Venus Limited because it is controlling Mars Limited, which is subsidiary. Through Mars Limited, Solar is able to control Venus Limited also. But actual ownership interest will be 49% only. The remaining 15% is held by others. So therefore, the 15% of the profit or OCI, net assets of Venus, shall be attributed to the NCI in the consolidated financial statement. So when you prepare the consolidated financial statement of Solar Limited, the NCI will account for 51% of the profit or loss, OCI, and net assets of Venus Limited. Normally, NCI will be less than 50, but in this case, Solar Limited's actual ownership interest in Venus is 49% only. How? 25% direct, 24% indirect, 80% of 30%. So the remaining 15% will be attributed to the non-controlling interest. So whatever the profit or loss, the OCI, net assets of Venus Limited, 15% will be attributed to non-controlling interest. So that is how accounting should be done. How this 45% is coming? Very simple. In Venus Limited, Mars is holding 30%. Solar holds 25%. Put together, they hold 55%. Others hold 45%. But 30% held by Mars Limited, 20% of the NCI in Mars Limited will control only 6% in that. So therefore, the non-controlling interest will be 20% of 30% plus 45% directly held by NCI. That is how we come to a conclusion that in the company Venus Limited, NCI will be 51%. So the profit or loss made by Venus Limited, any amount recognized in OCI, and net assets of Venus Limited will be divided into two components, 49% to the parent company, 51% to the non-controlling interest. So Solar Limited should account for investment in Venus Limited as an investment in subsidiary. It should prepare consolidated financial statements. But the non-controlling interest will be equivalent to 51%. That is how accounting for investment should be done by Solar Limited for its investment in Venus Limited. Friends, are you clear with this? It's a problem which can fetch you 4 to 5 marks in the examination. Okay. So in 10 minutes or so, we should be able to attempt and solve the problem and provide the solution to the problem. Question number 4. This question is actually based on investment in associates or joint venture in accordance with Ind AS 28. That is also forming part of chapter 14. So already we have done chapter 15, analysis of finance statement, one full question carrying 15-20 marks. Then in chapter 14, 2 problems we have done based on Ind AS 110. Now another question from chapter 14 involving investment in associate or joint venture governed by Ind AS 28. Okay, let's see the question first. On 1st April 19, Investor Limited acquires 35% interest in another entity, XYZ Limited. Investor Limited determined that it is able to exercise significant influence over XYZ Limited. So what more information you need to conclude that Investor Limited and XYZ Limited are in an investor-associate relationship. So if any company holds minimum 20% but not more than 50% stake in another company, then there is a relationship of investor and associate. Also, if they're able to exercise significant influence, it is very much governed by Ind AS 28. Therefore, the investment made by Investor Limited in XYZ Limited should be accounted and presented in accordance with Ind AS 28, investment in associate and joint venture. Okay. So the word significant influence and 35% interest should help you to understand that it is an investment in associate. Investor Limited paid a total consideration of 47 lakh 50,000 acquisition of its interest in XYZ. So for acquiring 35% interest, Investor Limited paid 47.5 lakhs. At the date of acquisition, the book value of XYZ Limited net asset was 90 lakh. Fair value was 1 crore 10 lakh or 110 lakhs. So book value 90, fair value 110. What could be the reason? The reason is there is a difference of 20 lakhs pertaining to an item of PPE which has a remaining useful life of 10 years. It's a very important point. So for the purpose of determining the net asset as per book value, it is 90 only, but fair value is 110. That means there is increase in the value of property, plant and equipment extent of 20 lakhs, and such PPE has a remaining useful life of 10 years. So where there is an increase of 20 lakhs on account of change in value of PPE, that also shall be taken into consideration to determine the goodwill or capital reserve for an investment in associate or joint venture. Okay. And where the associate is making a profit subsequent to acquisition, the change in depreciation on account of the change in value of PPE shall be adjusted first. After making this adjustment, only the balance of profit will be available to be shared by the investor and others. So that is why the remaining useful life of 10 years is given in the question. During the year, XYZ Limited made a profit of 8 lakhs. It paid a dividend of 12 lakh on 31st March 20. XYZ also holds a long-term investment in equity security. The associate is holding a long-term investment. Under Ind AS, investment is classified as at FVTOCI, that is fair value through other comprehensive income, in accordance with Ind AS 109. So any investment, if it is not an investment in associate or not an investment in subsidiary, shall be accounted and presented in accordance with Ind AS 109. Since there is an investment in equity securities, the company has decided to recognize it at fair value through OCI in accordance with 109. So the increase of 2 lakhs, the value of investment has been routed through OCI. Ignore deferred tax implication if any. So when it's given, ignore it, you please ignore it. Otherwise, there will be a deferred tax implication. Increase in fair value goes to P&L, goes to OCI 2 lakhs. 30% of that is 60,000, that is deferred tax liability. That also should be considered in general and in reality. But in this question, they very clearly said that ignore deferred tax implication if any. Actually, there is a deferred tax implication, but let us not worry about that. That's what the question tells you. But in reality, we cannot ignore this. Therefore, if you show this answer to somebody, they will say, what about the deferred tax? You didn't consider. Is it right? Then you should tell them, the problem tells me to ignore the deferred tax implication. That's why I haven't considered that. But in general, we will consider that. Okay. So therefore, your answer for this question is correct as far as the question is concerned. But in reality, this may not be the correct answer. We have to consider the deferred tax implication, provided any deferred tax arises or not. Okay. Now, calculate the closing balance of investor limited investment in XYZ Limited as on 31st March 20 as per the relevant Ind AS. So what's the relevant Ind AS? The relevant Ind AS is Ind AS 28, investment in associate or joint venture. That is the standard. So according to the standard, how the investment in associate should be presented in the consolidated statements? By following equity method of accounting. What does equity method of accounting tell us? First, we have to determine the goodwill or capital reserve at the time of acquisition of the investment by comparing the cost of investment with the proportionate share of net assets of the associate company. If that results in a bargain purchase or a capital reserve, that will be shown separately under other equity in the financial statement. Whereas if it results in goodwill, it will be forming part of the carrying amount of investment in associate that will not be shown separately. So first step is to find the goodwill or capital reserve at the date of acquisition. Then subsequently, after 1 year is over, what we should do? That carrying amount or cost of investment will be increased by its share of profit from the associate, will be reduced by its share of dividend received from the associate. You will get the carrying amount of investment in associate, subject to various other adjustments, if any is given in the question. In this problem, an adjustment is given. OCI routing is there, that has to be considered. The difference between the carrying amount and the revalued amount of 20 lakhs will result in a change in depreciation also. That also should be taken into consideration to the extent of the investor's share. And after considering all this, you have to find out what will be the carrying amount of investment in X Limited by applying the relevant Ind AS. So once we are clear about Ind AS 28, then solving this problem is very, very simple. So let's go to the answer, friends. Calculation of investors limited in XYZ Limited under equity method. So friends, please see carefully. Investor Limited acquired 35% shares in XYZ Limited for a consideration of 47,50,000. That is a consideration paid. That should be compared with what? 35% of the net assets of the investee or associate as on the date of acquisition. So 35% of book value, 90 lakhs, 35% is 31,50,000. Increase in fair value to the extent of 20 lakhs. In that also, 35% is available to the investor. So 35% of 20 lakhs is 7 lakhs. So what is the share of net assets of XYZ Limited due to Investor Limited? That is 31,50,000 plus 7 lakh, 38,50,000. But you have paid a consideration of 47,50,000. There is a difference of 9 lakh, excess amount paid. That difference will be recognized as goodwill, but will not be shown separately in the consolidated statement. It will just get added to the carrying amount of investment in associate. But we have to determine what is the amount of goodwill on acquisition. So on the date of acquisition, the cost of investment is 47.5, resulting in a goodwill of 9 lakhs. So goodwill is determined as the balancing figure. You can do it differently also. Cost is 47 lakh 50. What is 35% of book value of net asset? 31.5. 35% of increase in value is 7 lakh. So 47.5 minus 38.5, 9 lakh. Like that also you can find the value of goodwill as on the date of acquisition. Now 1 year has gone by. During this year, the investee has made a profit of 8 lakhs. In that, Investor Limited share is 33%, add it. So 8 lakhs into 35%, 2 lakh 80 will get added to the cost of investment. But remember, friends, there is increase in fair value of 20 lakh, is it not, in a property, plant and equipment, which has a remaining useful life of 10 years. Therefore, what is the depreciation on that? 2 lakhs. But investor share is only 35%. So therefore, out of the 2,80,000 profit made by XYZ Limited, the depreciation on account of the change in value, 70,000 should be adjusted. Only balance will be recognized the share of profit in the income by Investor Limited. That is, you will add only 2,10,000, not 2,80,000. Then dividend received by Investor Limited is 12 lakh, 35% of 12 lakh. The company declared 12 lakh, but investor would have received only 30%, of that is 4 lakh 20, that should be deducted. And remember, XYZ Limited has invested in a long-term investment, long-term equity investment, of which 2 lakh has been taken to other comprehensive income. So what is 35% of 2 lakh? That is investor share in that OCI, 70,000. That also should be added. So therefore, after making all these adjustments, the carrying amount of Investors Limited Investment XYZ Limited will be 46,10,000. How? 47,50,000 plus 2,10,000, that is share of profit subject to depreciation, 70,000 share of OCI, and dividend receipt 420 minus, you'll get 46,10,000. So you can check the answer. 47,50,000 plus 210 plus 70 minus 4,20,000 will get you 46,10,000. So in the consolidated financial statement of Investor Limited, the closing balance of investment in XYZ Limited will be carried at 46 lakh 10,000, which includes goodwill of 9 lakh. That is how we have to calculate and present the answer in the consolidated financial statements, friends. Now, friends, let us take up the next question. This question is based on our understanding of Ind AS 27, which is separate financial statements. See, when a company is supposed to prepare separate financial statements, if a company has to prepare consolidated financial statements in accordance with either 110 or 28 or 111, or it has not elected to avail the exemption available under those standards, it is supposed to prepare the consolidated financial statements. They will also be preparing their own financial statement, is it not? So such a financial statement prepared by these companies, which are supposed to prepare consolidated finance statements, are known as separate financial statements. In other words, if a company is not required to prepare consolidated financial statement, the financial statement prepared by such companies are known as standalone financial statements. So when would you call a financial statement as a separate financial statement? Take an example. Suppose X Limited is there. It is having 5 subsidiaries. It is supposed to prepare consolidated financial statement. But X will prepare their own financial statement also, is it not? Such a financial statement prepared by X Limited individually is known as separate financial statements. Number 1. Now, Ind AS 27 talks about how the investment in associate, subsidiary, and so on will be measured and presented in the separate financial statement. Ind AS 27 tells you that in the separate financial statement prepared by that parent company, investor company, the investments shall be recognized at cost or in accordance with Ind AS 109 financial instrument. That is what Ind AS 27 tells us. So if this is clear in our minds, we can easily answer this question. This question may carry around 4 or 5 marks in the exam. So probably we can take around 10 minutes maximum. Because beyond that, no problem in the classroom. We are discussing, it may take more time. But in exam, I think you cannot take more than 10 minutes to answer this question. Yes, friends, let us see the question first. A company AB Limited holds investment in subsidiary associate. Therefore, it is supposed to prepare consolidated financial statement. Hence, the financial statement prepared by AB Limited is known as separate financial statement. So, in its separate financial statement, AB Limited wants to elect to account its investment subsidiary at cost and the investment in the associate as financial asset at fair value through P&L in accordance with 109 financial instrument. See, they have 2 investments, one in subsidiary, one in associate. AB has to prepare consolidated statement. So they should be preparing the separate financial statement also. So in the separate financial statement, AB Limited wants to account for investment in subsidiary at cost, whereas investment in associate as a financial asset in accordance with 109. Whether this is allowed, whether different investments can be shown on different basis. That is a basic question in this problem. So whether AB Limited can carry investment in subsidiary at cost and investment in associate in accordance with 109 in its separate financial statement. Is it allowed? Whether different bases can be followed for different investment when they prepare separate financial statement? That is a question, friends. What could be the answer? Let's go forward and see. This is Ind AS 27. What does paragraph 10 says? As I keep telling you, friends, whether you remember the paragraph numbers or not is not important. If you do not remember, don't commit. Simply say Ind AS 27. If you remember the paragraph, wonderful, you can write it. But don't commit on a wrong paragraph number because it may reduce your credit in the examination. See, what does Ind AS 27 says? When an entity prepares separate financial statements, it shall account for investment in subsidiary, joint venture, and associates either at cost or in accordance with Ind AS 109 in its separate financial statement. That is what Ind AS 27 tells you. But one more thing, very important. The entity shall apply the same accounting for each category of investment. For each category of investment, they should apply the same accounting. So different accounting procedure or basis not allowed. That's what Ind AS 27 tells you. Okay. You may note that the category used in number of standards is not defined in any of the Ind AS. But it appears from a logical understanding that investment in subsidiary, associate, joint venture would qualify as separate categories. Thus, we have to apply the same accounting policy for each category of investment. That is investment in subsidiary, associate, joint venture. However, when you read the paragraph 10, you should read it carefully. All investment in associate should not be read as relating to one category, and investment in joint venture as another category. So the categories can be further divided into various subcategories, provided it is very clearly defined and it provides information that is relevant and reliable. So an investment entity can have an investment entity subsidiary at fair value through P&L, and a non-investment entity subsidiary as separate categories in its separate financial statement. So if the investments belong to different category, then different accounting policies can be followed. But from the reading of Ind AS 27, you can conclude that all investment in associate, joint venture, or subsidiary need not be one category. They can be divided into various categories. So therefore, friends, whether accounting for investment at cost, accounting for investment in associate can be done differently. Can they follow different basis for these different investments or not? We have to answer the question based on what is given in the accounting standards. So friends, if this is what the standard says, what are we supposed to do? Investment in subsidiary, associate are considered to be different categories of investment. Investment subsidiary is one category, associate is another category. In addition, if you read Ind AS 27 carefully, it says the investment in subsidiary, joint venture, associate can be recorded or accounted either at cost or in accordance with 109 for each category of investment. So if investment in subsidiary is one category, investment in associate is another category, from the plain reading of Ind AS 127, we're able to conclude that we can apply different measurement basis for the purpose of determining the value of or carrying amount of investment in subsidiary and the carrying amount of associate, investment in associate. So therefore, the answer to the question is yes, AB Limited can carry its investment in subsidiary at cost and its investment in associate as financial asset in accordance with 109 in its separate finance statement. So therefore, investment in subsidiary, different basis, investment associate, different basis allowed as per Ind AS 27 when such investments are presented in the separate financial statements of the company. So that is the answer for this question, friends. So hope it is clear. So that's what I told you in the beginning itself, friends. A clear reading, understanding of the standard is very, very essential in order to apply it in a given circumstance and get the appropriate or the correct solution to questions like this. Suppose the problem is based on numbers. We do some calculations and maybe right or wrong, that's a different thing. But we can easily do those problems. But where a question of this manner comes in exam, we have to be very, very careful. We should write the appropriate part of the standard clearly. Maybe in our own words, that is not a problem. There is no need to reproduce anything in the standard, but that should be clearly mentioned. So what is the problem based on which standard? What is given in the standard in relation to measurement of investment subsidiary and investment in associate? Can different basis can be taken or not? All that clearly we have to mention in our answer. Then we have to conclude that investment subsidiary associate can be regarded as different categories. Hence, finally say, yes, the company is allowed to carry the investment subsidiary at cost and investment associate as per Ind AS 109 in its separate financial statements, friends. Hope the clarifications was useful to you.